Imagine waking up in a world where your words don't just reflect your thoughts, they define the limits of your mind. In George Orwell's 1984, this terrifying reality takes shape through newspeak, a language crafted not to expand expression, but to eliminate it. Newspeak isn't just a vocabulary shift, it's a tool of control, stripping away complexity, silencing dissent, and reshaping perception. This isn't mere censorship, it's a fundamental rewiring of thought. When language is restricted, so is the ability to question, challenge, or even dream beyond the system's boundaries. Orwell's message is chillingly clear. To control people, first, control their words. Because when words are limited, so is freedom itself. Ever noticed how certain topics are framed in ways that dictate how they're discussed? Newspeak didn't end with Orwell's novel. It evolved, adapting to our modern world. Today, the manipulation of language is subtler but just as effective. Political rhetoric, media narratives, and even corporate slogans influence how people think and perceive reality. This is because language isn't just a tool for communication, it shapes cognition. When words are controlled, thoughts are controlled. This is why, in 1984, the party constantly reduces language, aiming for a world where thought crime becomes impossible because the words to articulate dissent no longer exist. Take, for example, the difference between the words freedom fighter and terrorist. The choice of label dictates the perception of the individual or movement in question. The same action, framed differently, generates vastly different emotional and intellectual responses. This kind of linguistic framing is present in political discourse worldwide, where opposing sides brand events and individuals in ways that fit their ideological narratives. Orwell's warning about newspeak applies directly to these real-world tactics. Beyond the manipulation of language, 1984 introduces the concept of doublethink, the ability to hold two contradictory beliefs simultaneously and accept both as true. 2 + 2 = 5 if the party says so. Freedom is slavery. Ignorance is strength. These paradoxes are more than just slogans, they serve a purpose. They erode logical reasoning, making it easier for individuals to accept whatever is presented to them by authority figures. In modern society, doublethink is alarmingly prevalent. Politicians make contradictory statements, yet their supporters believe both versions. Corporations promote ethical business practices while exploiting workers. Governments advocate for democracy while supporting oppressive regimes. These contradictions are often accepted without question because challenging them would require a level of critical thinking that many have been conditioned to avoid. Orwell's vision wasn't just dystopian fiction, it was a psychological insight into the mechanisms of control. Today, the influence of language on thought is everywhere, though far more subtle than Orwell's dystopia. Newspeak isn't official, but it's alive. Words are weaponized, repurposed to shape perception. Consider the phrase fake news. It's a tool, sometimes to expose falsehoods, other times to dismiss inconvenient truths. Language doesn't just describe reality, it shapes it. Terms like cancel culture or social justice started as discussions, but have been distorted into divisive labels, forcing people into rigid camps. Orwell warned us, control language, and you control thought itself. We see this play out in debates over political correctness. While the intention behind inclusive language may be positive, it has also led to instances where people feel afraid to express opinions that differ from the mainstream narrative. Fear of social ostracization leads to self-censorship, which, as Orwell pointed out, is one of the most effective forms of control. But how far have we really come since Orwell's time? Today, censorship isn't always overt, it's insidious. Social media, search engines, and news outlets constantly reshape narratives. The difference? We rarely notice it happening. Our perceptions, beliefs, and even personal identities are shaped by external forces. Terms like sustainability and inclusion sound progressive, yet their framing often limits deeper discussion. Newspeak, at its core, isn't just about eliminating words, it's about controlling what ideas are possible. Take, for example, algorithmic censorship. Social media platforms determine which content is promoted and which is buried. A post questioning mainstream narratives might be flagged as misinformation or harmful content, limiting its reach. Meanwhile, content that aligns with dominant ideologies is amplified. The result? A controlled narrative that gives the illusion of free thought while guiding public opinion in subtle but powerful ways. In 1984, Orwell doesn't just depict a society controlled by words, he shows one ruled by fear. The party doesn't maintain power through persuasion, it thrives on terror. Fear is the ultimate tool of control. When people are afraid, they willingly surrender freedoms for the illusion of safety. Enter Goldstein, the fabricated enemy designed to keep the population in perpetual fear, a scapegoat to justify endless control. Sound familiar? Crises, real or exaggerated, are often used to erode freedoms, justify surveillance, and tighten control. We're told safety requires sacrifice, but how much freedom must be lost before there's nothing left? Fear isn't random, it's engineered. The media amplifies threats, keeping us in a constant state of anxiety. Whether it's foreign enemies, economic collapse, or social unrest, the narrative keeps us on edge. And when we're afraid, we stop questioning. We accept the status quo. Fear doesn't just shape actions, it shapes thoughts, keeping us in survival mode, unable to think critically. Orwell also warns of history's manipulation. In 1984, the Ministry of Truth rewrites the past to fit the party's shifting narrative. The chilling slogan says it all. Who controls the past, controls the future. Who controls the present, controls the past. This isn't just fiction, it's historical reality. Governments and organizations have long erased or altered inconvenient truths. In the digital age, this power is even more dangerous. Information can be deleted, altered, or buried with the click of a button. The erasure of history isn't theoretical, it's happening in real time. If we lose touch with objective truth, we lose our ability to navigate the present and shape the future. Recent examples of historical revisionism include textbook changes that downplay historical atrocities, media narratives that selectively report events to fit political agendas, and social media censorship that removes inconvenient facts. The past is constantly being rewritten, often without people even realizing it. And then there's Big Brother, the all-seeing eye of Orwell's surveillance state. In 1984, surveillance is blatant, designed to ensure absolute compliance. Today, it's more subtle, but perhaps even more dangerous. Every click, every search, every conversation leaves a digital trace. Facial recognition, data tracking, and algorithmic monitoring are everyday realities. We're told it's for our safety, but at what cost? The loss of privacy isn't just an inconvenience, it's a step toward the loss of freedom. When we know we're being watched, we self-censor, we conform, we hesitate. Surveillance doesn't just record behavior, it shapes it. Orwell's warning is clear. A world without privacy is a world without freedom. Ultimately, 1984 isn't just about oppression. It's about the death of individuality. In Orwell's world, independent thought isn't just discouraged, it's criminal. The party demands total conformity. Today we may not live under a totalitarian regime, but the pressure to conform is stronger than ever. Social media, ideological echo chambers, and the demonization of dissent create an environment where standing out feels dangerous. When we stop questioning, when we stop challenging, we lose the very essence of what makes us human. Orwell's message couldn't be clearer. Without individuality, there is no freedom. So, ask yourself, how much of your individuality are you willing to sacrifice? How often do you silence your thoughts to fit in? The forces that seek to control us through language, fear, surveillance, and conformity are more real today than ever. If we're not careful, we may wake up in a world where true individuality no longer exists. If this video made you think, hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Join us as we explore the ideas that shape our world and our minds. Stay curious, stay aware, and never stop questioning.